Hello and welcome to Nithrania Game Club. My name is Branislav Berec and you're watching Game in a Nutshell, the series of videos designed for explaining the board game rules. Today we're going to learn how to play Tekhenu, Obelisk of the Sun, in a solo mode. I assume you already know how to play the standard game, and if not, check out my other video in which I explain how to play the game in a standard mode. And in this video I'm only going to explain how to play solo, how to play for this virtual player called Botankamon. So let's get started. When playing solo, you will play against the virtual Botankamon player. So set the game up for two players with the following changes. Botankamon doesn't use this player board. Keep the Botankamon species like pillars, buildings and statues nearby, and unlike human players who receive 2 decree cards at the start of the game and choose one to keep, Botankamon doesn't get any starting decree cards. Then the bot starts the game with 7 population and 4 happiness. Then there's no draft of these starting cards. Instead, draw 3 random starting cards and you as a human player choose 2 of them. Bot doesn't use any starting cards and doesn't get any resources. To increase the challenge, instead of picking 2 cards out of 3, you can simply draw 2 random starting cards. Botankamon always starts the game as the first player and then randomly chooses either this destiny card with the gold or this one with a scribe. However, Bot doesn't get any of those rewards. Then you as a human player can choose one of the remaining destiny cards. Regardless of the value on the Botankamon's destiny card, the Enk value of that card is always 4. Then take one of the bot's statues and place it around the obelisk as if built in honor of the first god in this list. Since I have the Hathor tile here, the statue will be placed over here. Then shuffle these Botankamon's action tiles and place them face up in this kind of a pyramid shape. Place the progress marker to the left of the base of the pyramid and this Deben token nearby. By the way, Deben is the name of the ancient Egyptian unit of measurement of weight or some proto-currency, so that's where the name comes from. The setup we have covered so far is an easy difficulty setup. To increase the difficulty to medium, place one of the Botankamon's buildings in the 5th row in the bread column and the granite column. In addition, place one of its pillars on this central space of the temple complex. Draw any random pillar tile as a foundation for this pillar. And if you want to play with the hard difficulty, in addition to all the previous steps, place one of the bot's statues in the honor of the god, which is shown next to this die value 4 in the Horus list. So in this case, it's the Horus himself, so the die would be placed over here. There is basically no change to the gameplay compared to the multiplayer game, and when it's Botankamon's turn, you will always use the progress marker to determine which action the bot will take. If the progress marker is next to the pyramid, first place it on this tile and the bot will take the corresponding action. On any subsequent turns, you will flip this Deben token, and if it shows this side, the progress marker will move in this direction, so it will move to this tile, and the bot will perform the corresponding action. And if it shows this side, the progress marker will simply move to the right, so like this. And then bot will perform that corresponding action. The pyramid will change for each Maat Phase, so the bot will only take 4 rounds with each pyramid. So the progress marker can move like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. It always starts on this tile and it always ends on one of these 4 tiles. When you resolve the effect of the tile, you will take exactly 1 die and perform the corresponding action. Keep the die next to the action tile. All dice will be returned normally to the drawback at the end of the Maat Phase. Since Botankamon doesn't use the player board, bot never produces resources and bot never pays any resources for any actions. If the progress marker lands on one of these god action tiles, bot will take the god action which corresponds to that god. So in this case it's Hathor. Now bot will take the highest value pure or tainted die. If tied, take the pure die if possible, and if still tied, take one of those pure dice randomly. If the corresponding section would contain no dice or only forbidden dice, move one section counterclockwise and take the die from that section if possible. However, in that case, you would perform the god action which corresponds to that god, not to the original one. After moving the progress marker, if the progress marker lands on this resource tile, take the highest value pure or tainted die of the color which corresponds to the first resource depicted. So in this case limestone, which means white dice. Here we have two white dice with value 6, however this one is forbidden, so you would take this die and take the god action which corresponds to the section where you take the die from. If tied, like in this case, take the die from the section with the bot's statue. If still tied, like here, two white dice with value 6 and both of them in a section with the bot's statue, choose the section with higher numbered Horus bonus. In this case, Bastet has value 5, Hathor has a value 1, so Bastet would be the chosen section. If the highest value dice would be in a sections without bot statues, choose one of them randomly. If there are no dice of the corresponding color on the obelisk wheel, like in this case there will be no white dice, proceed to the next resource and you will choose one of the black dice, and so on and so forth. When Botankamon takes the die from this Horus section, based on the value of the die, Bot will build a statue which honors the corresponding god. In this case, it would be Osiris. So place the bot's statue in the corresponding section. If the corresponding section would be already occupied, then Bot will build the statue for the people, and first it will perform to build a statue in this Osiris area. When both statue spaces are empty, Bot will choose a space with the biggest impact in terms of victory points. If that statue would be built here, then both Bot and the human player would have one piece in this column, and that means Bot will gain the 3 victory points. There will be no change to this column, because instead of 1, Bot will have 2 pieces here. There will be no change in this column, because human player has 2 pieces and Bot would only have 1, so still no change of control, and the same applies here. That means the biggest impact is in this column, and Bot will place the statue here. Take this gold token away and return it back to the general supply. If the point impact would be same in both cases, choose the space randomly. If both spaces would be occupied, Bot will build a statue in one of the empty spaces in the temple complex. The Bot will choose the space with most Bot pillars and then score those pillars normally, so 3 victory points for each pillar in the corresponding column or corresponding row. In case the number of pillars for both spaces would be equal, then choose the space randomly. And if both spaces will be already occupied, simply score 3 victory points. One last note about using the bonuses for statues which are built around this obelisk. There's no change to the rules for human players, however, Bot doesn't take the bonuses depicted next to those Horus bonus tiles. Instead, use this chart from the rulebook at the bottom of the page 24, which depicts the bonuses for Botankamon. So, statues associated with these 2 gods would yield 1 scribe token for Botankamon. Statues associated with these 2 god actions would yield 1 victory point, and statues associated with these 2 god actions would yield 1 scribe and 1 victory point. But only for the Botankamon. Remember, there's no change for the human player. The human player would always receive the bonuses depicted next to these bonus tiles. When Bot performs this Ra action, it will build a pillar in the temple complex. First, take the tile which corresponds to the selected die. So in this case it would be this tile. Then, take the tile and don't change its orientation, and place it in any empty space in the temple which yields the most victory points for Botankamon. Bot will score 1 victory point for any building of any color, and 1 victory point for any adjacent edge, again of any color. Bot always ignores any space bonuses and also the pillar tile bonuses. So in this case, this corner space would yield 1 victory point for this building and then 3 victory points for 3 adjacent edges. If placed here, it would be only 2 victory points from edges and 1 victory point from the building, In this space it would be only 1 victory point for the adjacent edge and 1 victory point for the building, so this is the space which yields the most victory points. Then place one of the bot's pillars on that tile. If multiple spaces would score the same highest number of victory points, the bot would prefer the spaces which corresponds to the row or column with one of its buildings, and it always prefers spaces which are not adjacent to the temple complex edges. So in this example, it's 1 victory point for the adjacent edge and 1 victory point for the building. If still tied, choose one of those spaces randomly. And if there are no buildings around the temple complex, then bot will choose one of these 4 corner spaces randomly. Don't forget to score the victory points for the selected tile. When bot performs this Hathor action, it will build a building around the temple complex, and it will choose a space which will yield the most victory points from pillars. So in this example, it would be this space. If multiple spaces would score same number of victory points or no space would score any victory point, choose a space randomly. Make sure you don't place buildings in the spaces for 3 or 4 players. Then use the value of the selected die and move the Tutankhamun's population marker by the same number of spaces. With the Bastet action, you will move the Tutankhamun's happiness marker as many spaces as is the value of the chosen die. Remember, bot doesn't pay any resources. Now, the rules for moving the happiness marker for bot are slightly changed. Move the happiness marker one step at a time, and anytime the happiness marker would go beyond the population marker, move the population marker instead. So in this case, I have moved happiness marker by 3 spaces, then I moved population marker by 1 space, so those are 4 points out of 6. I still have 2 points remaining. For the next one, I will move the happiness marker again, and for the last one, since I would move the happiness marker beyond the population marker, I move the population marker again. Bot doesn't receive any rewards when moving the happiness marker to these reward spaces. However, based on the die value, it receives the scribes normally. In this case, for value number 6, there would be no scribe. When taking the Thoth action, bot will take either 1, 2 or 3 cards from the card market, based on the chosen die value. Bot will take the cards from the highest segment possible, so with the happiness marker in the green zone, bot can take the cards from this green section. Again, all the cards must come from the same section, and bot will take the decree cards first, then technology cards, and then blessing cards. So based on the die value, 5 in this case, bot would take 3 cards, so bot will take this one, this technology, and this technology card. If the die value would be 4 and bot would only take 2 cards, the priority is the decree card, and then the second priority is the technology card, and then bot takes the leftmost card first. Tutankhamun ignores all the effects on all cards. So you can turn them face down, but keep them near the pyramid because they will be scored during the scoring phases. When bot takes this Osiris action, it will construct one building in the Osiris area, but without losing the happiness. The selected die determines the row and the column of the new building. In this case, it's 5th row. Since the color is black, the new building should be placed in this space. If the space is occupied, build a building in the next space to the right, and if needed, cycle through the spaces, so the new building would be placed here in this particular example. If all spaces in the given row would be occupied, then go to the row above that row and repeat the process. Tutankhamun ignores all the effects and all the resources, it simply blocks the space with the building. If the chosen die would be gray, then choose the column with the fewest buildings, so the new building would be placed over here. If it is the first building in the second row, remove this token as well. In case there are multiple columns with the fewest buildings, choose the leftmost one, so the building will be placed here. At the end of each Maat phase, you will evaluate the balance on your scales. There's no change how you calculate your balance. However, bot has a fixed balance value and it's +3 at the end of the first Maat phase, +2 at the end of the second Maat phase, and +1 at the end of the third and fourth Maat phase. Remember, the Ankh value of the bot's destiny card is always 4. When you evaluate the new turn order and Tutankhamun becomes the first player, it chooses the gold or scribe destiny card randomly. Then you may choose one of the remaining destiny cards. Again, Bot doesn't receive any rewards for that card. If you become the first player, you can choose any card you want. Then shuffle all the pyramid tiles again and create the new pyramid. Then take all dice which were accumulated by Tutankhamons during the previous Maat phase and return them back to the drawback. During the scoring phase, Tutankhamon will use the standard scoring for the Osiris area, for the temple complex, for the position of the happiness marker, and also for the number of statues built. You can look at your own player board to determine how many points Bot will score for the number of statues built. Then score the victory points for cards. For each blessing card, score 2 victory points and then discard the card. This simulates the one-time use as for human players. Then for each technology card, score 2 victory points but keep those cards. Bot doesn't score any victory points for the decree cards during the half-game scoring, and it also doesn't score any victory points for number of buildings built. At the end of the game, in addition to all the previous scoring, Bot will score 4 victory points for each decree card, and there's absolutely no restriction for Bot to how many decree cards they can score. And if you want to make the game even more challenging, you can score 8 victory points for each decree cards, and then score 1 victory point for each set of 2 scribes. Don't forget that the player who ends the game in the first position on the turn order track would also score 3 additional victory points. And that's how we play Tekhenu in a solo mode. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment sections below. I'll be happy to answer your questions. If you like the series, please subscribe. My name is Branislav Berec, you've been watching Game in a Nutshell, and hope to see you next time.